A lot of you have been asking, when is that buy or sell series going to be coming out? I'm going to try to do it here for you guys. So make sure you comment down below what other players you want to see in this series, as I will kind of navigate this probably up into the NFL draft. Today, I'm bringing you two buys, two sell players that you should be going out, either acquiring or selling before the 2023 season. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, if you want to unlock some more bonus content, more articles, and our rankings, make sure you go to flockfantasy.com/land. Not only do you get our rankings and our bonus content, our articles, you get all the other content creators out there. And you also get 30% at sign up and a 2-day free trial. So once again, flockfantasy.com/land. Let's get straight into the video. My first buy low player that you should be going out and acquiring right now before it's too late, that is Hollywood Brown. This past year, he finished as wide receiver 44, and he did miss 6 games with that injury. Okay, let me remind you what he did in 2022. 67 receptions, over 100 targets, over 700 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's currently the wide receiver 32 according to the community. Once again, I think this is a great buy low opportunity, and let me tell you why before I tell you the price. There are so many question marks around Hollywood Brown, and I think the community is questioning what is going to happen. Number one question mark is Kyler Murray. Is he going to be ready? When is he going to be ready? Is that weeks 4, 5, 6? Is it going to be even longer than that? Who is going to be that quarterback taking over for Kyler Murray, even if he's not ready? And I think all those questions are valid. And I think this is why this is so exciting for me for Hollywood Brown, is because not only is Hollywood Brown still only 25 years old, going to be 26 by the end of this year when the season starts, he still has to get a re-sign. He still is going to either re-sign with the Cardinals or move on to another team with a potentially better option, potentially better quarterback, right? And I know that's a big hypothetical, but even then, if he does re-sign with the Arizona Cardinals, he has one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Okay, Kyler Murray, let me remind you, he has been fantasy relevant and has produced DeAndre Hopkins as being a top 5, top 4, even top 3 wide receiver in the years he's been in the league for Kyler Murray, right? Now that is concern number one. Concern number two, what's going to happen with DeAndre Hopkins? DeAndre Hopkins, so many mixed emotions. Is he going to stay with the team? Is he going to move forward? And I do believe DeAndre Hopkins will move forward, which will, in my perspective, which will move Hollywood Brown as wide receiver 1, no matter who they bring in. Let me remind you, the Cardinals have the 3rd pick in the NFL draft. They could trade back, but they're probably going to invest in an offensive lineman or defensive, in like Tyree Wilson or John Michaels, whatever the case may be, right? Whatever draft pick that they want to go in the early rounds. A wide receiver will probably get drafted here, but maybe it will be a Josh Downs in the 2nd, which he's a good slot receiver. A Zay Flowers in the 2nd. Hypothetically, if he does fall, is a very good wide receiver. Hollywood Brown will no doubt be the wide receiver 1 on this team. So once again, a great price for Hollywood. And let me remind you what he did this past year. In 2021, from weeks 1 to 6, he was the wide receiver 5 before that injury. He was averaging 18.3 fantasy points per game, which was 7th amongst wide receivers in the first 6 weeks of the season. Hollywood Brown was on pace to be a top 15 wide receiver. And yes, he did get injured. Hollywood did, and also Kyler Murray did. So honestly, it was really hard to extrapolate any of those numbers because of Kyler Murray and because of Hollywood Brown injury. But once again, was a top 5 wide receiver from weeks 1 to 6, and he was a wide receiver 1 coming in, and you guys got him at a very, very good price, especially with Hollywood Brown or DeAndre Hopkins missing some time as well. So once again, if you can go get Hollywood Brown, I would personally do that. According to community, he is wide receiver 32. And there's a couple different ways you can go. You can go right now, according to community, that is equivalent to the 111. You tell me who's out there trading for Hollywood Brown for the 111, especially with the news with Kyler Murray, what's going to be happening, a new head coach. People want to get Hollywood Brown on the low. And I think a true window, a true opportunity for you to get Hollywood Brown in a package, I would say from the 202 to the 203. And why not throw in someone like a Rashad Bateman? Why not throw in someone like a Kadarius Toney, a Sky Moore? Some of these wide receivers that are in question that other people may believe in because they're their quarterback feels a little bit more comfortable, or maybe in Rashad Bateman's case that his quarterback is a little bit in question. What about Amari Cooper, who is wide receiver 35 currently, where Hollywood is wide receiver 32? Maybe you can sell him to a win now team and tier down, or excuse me, technically you're tiering up, but then sell Amari Cooper to acquire Hollywood Brown. There's so many names, there's so many options that you can do and ways you can go. I'm really happy and excited to be acquiring Hollywood Brown here if I personally can. I sent out a couple trades, so hopefully they hit so I can show you guys in the next video. But once again, wide receiver 32, my wide receiver 30, if you can go out and acquire Hollywood Brown on this package right now, in this deal, before Kyler Murray is healthy, before week 1, you can get him extremely low. My second buy low player is a quarterback and actually is a teammate of Hollywood Brown, and that is Kyler Murray, the cockroach himself. And yes, if you have been following and have been part of this community, you know how much I hate Kyler Murray. Why? I can't give you a reason. And this is just a classic Badake move, but it just bothers me when he runs with his little legs and you just miss, and he's like, wow, Kyler Murray is great. But I agree, he is a great quarterback. It just bothers me when he does that and avoids the tackle for loss, especially against the Giants. But yes, Kyler Murray is my second buy low player here. And let me tell you why. So many people right now are concerned about what is the status with Kyler Murray. Is he really going to be great again, especially with the rushing upside, the ability to escape the pocket, because that is something that is great for him. Absolutely. That is something that he excels in as a quarterback, that helps him as a fantasy quarterback as well. But I believe the price for him right now is a bit ridiculous. He's currently quarterback 11 in my quarterback 10 according to my rankings. Quarterback 11 according to the community, my QB 10. Okay. We've seen so many different trades for Kyler Murray where people have gotten a top three picks for him. You know, 101, the 102, 103 for Kyler Murray. And then we've seen from the 104 to the 106 for Kyler Murray. Now, that is the window that I want to talk about. Because if you're in a league where somebody doesn't believe in Kyler Murray as much as I do right now, not unfortunately, but surprisingly to say, but if you are in that window from the 105, 106, 107, I would say even 104, I am happy to go out and try to acquire Kyler Murray for that price. And once again, so many question marks of when he is going to be ready. But let me remind you, he is only 25 years old. He just got his second contract, and with a new head coach in Jonathan Gannon, that just coming from the Philadelphia Eagles, and he is going to help him. He is going to do everything possible that's going to help him. And yes, there's a lot of different things that they need to do. They need to improve in this offensive line, which I personally believe they're going to be doing by trading back with the third pick to help Kyler Murray improve, right? They need to go get him another weapon in the running back room. They need to go get him another weapon in the wide receiver room if DeAndre Hopkins does leave. And once again, if that window is there for you, and from the 104 to the 107 with Kyler Murray, you can get him on the low with some of these question marks. I am extremely happy to do that right now, and a lot of people can do that. Now, if you are in the window from the 101, 102, 103, I'm not saying you should go out and pay. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and pay that. I'm saying I think you can get him at a cheaper price according to what the community is currently getting for him, especially in our live streams. Let me remind you what Kyler Murray used to be. In 2019, Kyler Murray was the quarterback 7. That was his rookie year. In 2020, he was the quarterback 2. His sophomore year, averaging 24.4 fantasy points per game. 2021, obviously he had a little bit of a dip, and he was the quarterback 10 in this past year, where we knew that he tore his ACL and missed some games. Kyler Murray is a high caliber quarterback. Kyler Murray is an elite quarterback, where I would say if it wasn't for this injury, he would be in a dynasty startup around the Justin Fields, around the Lamar Jackson type. But right now he's falling into the middle of the second round in a dynasty startup, going after sometimes Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, which is valid in my opinion. But if you can get a proven asset like Kyler Murray with high rushing upside like Kyler Murray, who has a good offense at the moment, I mean, decent weapons, and I say decent, I mean just Hollywood Brown. And at the moment we can say DeAndre Hopkins, if he doesn't leave, then Kyler Murray is an elite quarterback. He is the elite quarterback. He is in that elite status. He just needs to get healthy, and the stigma around Kyler Murray not being able to get his groove back needs to go away, because we've seen multiple quarterbacks come back, maybe not as mobile as Kyler Murray, but still create fantasy relevancy, aka Joe Burrow, who did this I would say 2 years ago now, when he tore his ACL, came back, went to the Super Bowl. Keep that in mind, guys. If I were you, I would be trying to acquire Hollywood Brown and Kyler Murray, maybe even as a package. See what you can do. Once again, get K1 in the window of the 104 to the 107. I think that would be a good price for you guys. Okay, going into the sell high players, my first sell high player is a tight end, and that is George Kittle. And if you guys have been following the channel, you guys know how I feel about Brock Purdy and or Trey Lance. I would say that is going to affect massively George Kittle specifically. And let me tell you why. This past year, George Kittle, 60 receptions, 86 targets, 765 yards, 11 touchdowns. And I think that's the big number, the big kicker here. If you are looking at George Kittle and saying, wow, he had a great year. He finished as tight end 3 this past year. And he did finish as tight end 3, but I think we need to understand that a lot of his targets did equate to touchdowns, which let me show you that in his career, this is his highest finish with touchdowns. The last time he had this many touchdowns was last year in the year before in 2021 was 6 touchdowns. That was his highest ever season with touchdowns. Now he jumps to 11 touchdowns. I think that is skewed. I don't think that will be repeated. I think he could be a person that gets the targets, but the touchdowns definitely significantly helped George Kittle acquire a lot of those fantasy points coming into the season. Another reason why I want to sell George Kittle high right now, he's 29 years old. He's coming into that window of where, okay, you either have to keep him until the wheels fall off, or you try to sell him high, which I am trying to tell you right now. Another reason is, who the hell is going to be the quarterback? And I would say I prefer Brock Purdy. It sounds crazy right now, right? Because this is what we know. I prefer Brock Purdy over Trey Lance, because I've seen what Brock Purdy could be and how he can make George Kittle fantasy relevant. And the reason why I feel more comfortable with Brock Purdy is because he is somewhat of a mold of Jimmy G. He's a more pocket passer. He's not going to go out and scramble and be a rusher, kind of what we're expecting Trey Lance to be, a dual threat quarterback. Let me remind you, when Brock Purdy came in from weeks 13, he played weeks 13 to 18, obviously into the playoffs. You know who was the tight end 1? George Kittle. George Kittle was the tight end 1 because he has that Jimmy G mold. He has the guy that's going to be looking for the tight end as his safety blanket in the middle of the field. And it just makes so much sense of why I would even want to sell George Kittle even more, is because if Purdy is not ready with that elbow and Trey Lance is, who's gonna take the hit? Right? I would say everyone will take the hit, but I think George Kittle will take the hit because Trey Lance is going to continue to rush. I know he broke his ankle, but he will continue to rush. He will continue to be a dual threat guy to get out of the pocket and to try to extend the play. Not saying he cannot be successful with George Kittle. I know this is a feeling, but Brock Purdy, we just know, and we've seen that a little bit more from this history of from the past weeks 13 to 18. Scored 7 touchdowns within that span, George Kittle. That is unrealistic. That is something that I believe we need to take advantage of and sell right now. According to the community, George Kittle is a tight end 5. In my rankings, he's a tight end 7. And the reason why he's my tight end 7, once again, 29 and a half years old, going to be pivoting away from a quarterback. And what is the quarterback situation going to be long term? That is another big question. Number 2, I guess number 3, and my third part is George Kittle and the 49ers. The 49ers do have an out on George Kittle's contract after this year. So are they going to pay him? We saw all these people that they just extended and paid in the defensive side. They paid Deebo Samuel. What's going to happen to Brandon Ayuk? Do they choose Brandon Ayuk over George Kittle? You get what I'm saying? They have CMC there as well. There's so many signs and ways that saying, you know what, we need to pivot from George Kittle. Players I'm happy to pivot to, TJ Hawkinson, 25 years old. You know, I'm happy to pivot to there. Dallas Goedert, 28 years old, currently the tight end 6. What about Pat the Dragon, Pat Frymuth at 24 years old as tight end 7 according to the community? These are some guys that I'm going to be really happy to go out and either pivot or try to acquire right now if I do have a George Kittle, because of all the question marks that are going to be coming into the 2023 season. And to close with my argument, George Kittle has suffered with injury, and we've seen this past year was probably one of his best years to stay onto the field. He did play 15 games. He missed the first 2 games and was healthy, but was always a question mark coming in the fantasy relevancy. But, you know, obviously in 2020, he only played 8 games. In 2021, only played 14 games. So he does miss pockets of windows, which is fine, just like any other player. But as you get older, the harder and more difficult it is to stay onto the field. And once again, going into that 30 years old fear with George Kittle, I think is going to be time to be moving forward from him. So if you can sell George Kittle right now on the high, I personally would. My last sell high player that I believe you should be getting rid of as soon as possible, especially before the NFL draft, so you have about 2 weeks, and that is running back Tyler Algier. He is currently running back 29 according to the community. And yes, I'm going to give him his flowers. He did do his thing this past year. I did say he was going to be a role player. Just wasn't expecting it to be so soon. And I would say he even exceeded expectations by taking over a backfield in the second half of the season, right? 210 attempts, over 1,000 yards. 3 touchdowns this past year in 2022. Obviously, Cordero Patterson was kind of the lead back there for the first couple weeks. Struggled with injury. Missed, I would say, the middle pack of the season, which kind of gave Tyler Algier a little bit more breathing room and opportunity for this head coach and this running back room to really take over the running back room. So now there's a lot of red flags for me, though, for Tyler Algier in the situation that he's in. I'm not saying he's a bad running back. I am saying I see a lot of other running backs that can take over his opportunity within an instant. Drafted in the 5th round in 2022 out of BYU. He's 5'11", 220 pounds. So he's a bigger back. He's probably going to be a goal line back, in my personal opinion, when they do draft another running back. And let me tell you why I believe that, okay? Because of the draft capital. 5th round draft capital for Tyler Algier. We've seen it so many times in history where, you know, we see guys saying, well, they got decent draft capital or 4th, 3rd round pick, and another team ends up drafting another running back, right? And I would say the fantasy community would agree with me when we would say there are so many other running backs in this draft class in 2023 that we all believe in significantly more, or we believe are significantly better than Tyler Algier. And I'm not even going to include Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Zach Charbonnet. But I can name 10 running backs right now that I would say the fantasy community feels a lot more comfortable having, or I would say believes in a lot more than Tyler Algier being the running back and going into 2023. Excuse me. Sean Tucker. Barely had a pro day, wasn't even the NFL draft. I think we will all believe Sean Tucker can take Tyler Algier's role. Chase Brown, a guy that I believe in my RB5, depending on the community, how you feel. Israel Abanikanda, a guy we all seen, amazing pro day, extremely fast, and a bigger back. Tank Bigsby, another bigger back, I believe can take the workload away from Tyler Algier without a doubt. Zach Evans, who I'm not even high on, I believe can take this opportunity away from Tyler Algier. Roscoe Johnson, big old Roscoe, 100% can take the opportunity away in my eyes from Tyler Algier. Tajay Spears, phenomenal pro day, good NFL combine. Another guy I can see taking opportunities away from Tyler Algier, or maybe doing a 50-50 workload and his value kind of diminishing. Devin Achane being a 3rd down role, but I think he is a more superior talent, even though the size is not there. I believe Devin Achane can come in and take opportunities away from Tyler Algier. Kendre Miller, my RB12 currently, and I would wholeheartedly say that I believe in Kendre Miller is superior back than Tyler Algier, and will definitely get the opportunity over once again, Tyler Algier. Evan Hull, a guy that kind of showed up in the NFL Combine. We didn't really have our eyes on, but now he's the guy that, once again, if he gets the draft capital ahead of the 5th round, we will all say, okay, there's some opportunity there. So look, I'm not saying Tyler Algier is not a good running back. I'm not saying that he can't win in this backfield. I'm saying this team, in my opinion, will draft another running back in this NFL draft. And then he's going to lose his workload because he's currently the RB. Once again, he's currently RB 29. He is currently valued around the mid-second round, from the 203 to the 206. If I can get a 205 right now and get an Izzy, who does go to this team, who does go to another, like the team like the Bengals, no doubt I'm going to do it, right? There can be any other running back here that can definitely take opportunity, even a wide receiver. We've seen so many guys, a wide receiver, a tight end, we've seen so many guys with better opportunity come in, have a better landing spot, you know, steps in straight into a workload that's going to be better than Tyler Algier. Obviously, if the Falcons do not draft a running back, then for sure this take is out the window. But I am projecting that the Falcons are going to be drafting a running back, and why not try to sell him high right now? And even if they don't draft a running back this year, let's say, I don't think Tyler Algier's value is going to rise significantly more. Maybe it goes to the 201. I don't think he's going to go into the 1st round range. If he does go into the 1st round range, it's probably because he's going to be finish as a top 20, I would say 15 back, and then there's a different conversation. But right now at the 205, I do believe this is going to be the highest his value is ever going to be. So if you can sell him right now, before you got 2 weeks before the NFL draft starts. So guys, once again, George Kittle, Tyler Algier, Kyler Murray, the cockroach himself, and Hollywood Brown. 2 guys you should buy, 2 guys you should sell. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if you like my takes. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh,
it's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.